What it is, y'all, it is your old boy Pilk, and I'm coming back at you today with more Danmachi, and today we're going to be talking about the new heroic trial. Now, as you can tell, I'm running out of time, so let's jump in here. We're going to talk less about the team and more about the tactics. And I'm going to change her out real quickly for the new Hestia unit. There we go. And we're going to talk about the tactics, then we're talking about what bond you're going to want to partake in with this. So stay tuned to the end of the video for that specific situation. Now, of course, if you're enjoying these videos, make sure you hit the old thumbs up button. Unfortunately, because of some things that happened in my day, I didn't get a chance to jump into this quite until the very end, as I had already unlocked it, but that's family life. So let's go ahead and get this going. Now, first things first, normally you come out of the gate with a big debuff here. I still think that's a decent tactic, but Eyes is going to remove your debuffs. Now, the main thing you want to pay attention to here is you want to use magic units. Light would be better than the team that I have built, but I haven't had time to build another team, unfortunately. So if you have a magic light unit, basically if you have Althea, she's a great unit for this. Althea is great. The new Lena is absolutely perfect, but unfortunately this is not the team that I've built. They do only have 2.6 million damage, so really if you have a really well-hitting single target light team, like 2 good SAs are just going to decimate this team. So do bear in mind and do consider that. The only other thing you do want to partake in, or do take in about this, is that Eyes, she buffs, she heals, and she removes your debuff. Eyes is a pain in the ass, so you want to make sure you take her out with a quickness. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to focus on Eyes first and foremost. Okay, I'm going to come out of my gate with that damage. Now, she will remove her debuff, so while we are debuffing 40%, that's really only going to help us on turn 1. Turns 2 and beyond, they're not going to be a terrible amount of fun. So what we want to do is we want to buff our defenses as much as humanly possible. So we're going to do Snow Illusion, and we're going to use Galamus here for Earthshaker. Now, you don't necessarily need to use these exact units, you just need somebody that buffs, basically, in this case, buffs physical resist and magic resist on all your units, and, if possible, buffs attack all and single target damage, so that we just take as little of that as possible. Now, unfortunately, that does mean that single target and AoE damage is going to be kind of not on our final attacker, so your final attacker needs to be somebody that can kind of survive without that. Alright, so do be very, very, very mindful and cautious of that. Alright. So turn 1, now we've got everyone down strength and magic 40%. They are going to attack with magic attacks, so you do want to use a lot of defenses that remove their magic damage as much as possible. Kind of see why I switched out that assist there at the very beginning. And I'm going to go ahead and do Yosuga. Now, while we would normally then buff penetration and penetration and counter rate, we could do that a little bit later. I'm not really terribly worried about that. While that is going to help us when we start doing like crazy essays and stuff like that, at this juncture of the game, counters would be good from the 2 Haruhimes. So this is true. This is very true. But we also need a lot of healing. We need a ton of healing because, well, life is going to suck once that debuff is removed. And I believe that debuff gets removed at the beginning of this turn. So rather than worrying about all that, I'm going to go ahead and kind of chill. Well, also, this Line will buff counter rate too, so we're not terribly worried about that. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We get 33% counter rate, SA gauge, a few other things. So instead, we're going to do Yosuga and make sure that all our buffs stay kind of in play. Because I feel like when we get later on in the match, we're going to have to use Akane to debuff these units again. Because once that magic debuff is gone, well, you're going to see. Middle of this turn, we're going to start taking more damage than we'd like. I'm going to go ahead and do a fire resistance debuff, and I believe that does a magic debuff too. Yes, magic and fire, magic resistance and fire resistance debuff, just to make sure that, you know, these units are taking as much damage as possible. Obviously, this is a single target, so I'm going to be targeting Eyes because I do want Eyes to take the most damage right out of the gate. Instead of Snow Illusion, I'm going to do Dancing Snow because you'll notice that Strength and Magic is now debuffed 25%. So our big hits aren't going to take that much effect, and we are going to get debuffed like this very, very, very often. So if you don't have to use these exact units, but if you have somebody that a better unit would be a unit that entirely removes debuffs, but being that I've kind of built my team to do, you know, incoming damage debuffs and removal of their debuffs, or at least somewhat negate their debuffs, she has kind of been a huge asset on this team, like an immense asset. So we're going to replicate all of our buffs and debuffs. We're going to take 2 turns off of all their debuffs or all their buffs and our debuffs. So that's why the Haruhimes makes such an awesome team. We're going to go ahead and debuff fire damage and magic resistance, and we're going to increase our SA gauge and our counter rate as well as other things. So, handy situation, and you can kind of now see why the water riv is there on the end. Perfect. Now, if I go in here, I bet you no, they're actually their magic debuff is still in play. Color me impressed. Physical resistance is up, so once again, you want to use mostly magic teams. So you don't want to fall into that trap, pretty much. Now, my magic resistance is now down 65% on her. That does mean that Mikoto, not so much, but she still has a lot of those effects in play. But once again, Ice is the one that heals, so Ice is the one we got to get rid of early, and then Mikoto will pretty much fall. So that's where we're at. I'm going to go ahead and do this buff. That's going to give everyone on the team 33%, and she's going to get 100% SA gauge charge. That's going to be a lot of SA gauge, and that's going to get us a lot of early SA so that we can wipe these units out. Remember I said SAing will take them out with the swiftest. All right. The debuff isn't gone yet, so I'm going to go ahead and focus on doing damage, and I'm going to do Dancing Snow one more turn because, well, actually, you know what? I'm not going to. I'm going to do Snow Silver to try to regen some of that MP we've spent. That is the only MP regen skill she has. It does not a lot of MP, but it does increase MP across the board, which is very, very good. So, because at the end of this turn, those are gone anyway. Now, if she did it, all those debuffs would be gone pretty much at the beginning of this turn, but that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. We'll come out of the gate turn 3 with a lot of this good stuff. All right. It does mean we basically have to survive to the end of this turn, which ain't going to be a huge amount of fun. Boom. Now, on this turn, I'm going to go ahead and go back to do Snow Illusion because we need to decrease that incoming damage. I'm actually pretty impressed that the magic debuff is still in play. I kind of thought the magic debuff would be gone by now. I believe on turn 5 they're going to rebuff all that stuff. I'm going to try to go to get a double, maybe even a triple SA, but I'm going to try to get at minimum a double SA out of this because we are going to buff with Haruhime. That is basically how we're going to do all of our damage. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do a buff on this turn. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I don't like doing it right away. I like kind of doing it when, no. I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it for when we need an emergency heal. The reason I'm going to say that is because there's a situation where these units could start hitting really, really, really hard. So if that magic debuff disappears, then we start taking huge, huge, huge damage. So we're going to want to keep that in play. I'm just debating how I want to tackle this. I haven't had any, thus far, successful runs because I've been trying other extreme tactics. And, well, this has kind of been the most successful thing, but unfortunately I had to cancel that run, which you can kind of see what happened there. So let's go ahead and restart this, or say get it restarted. We're going to go ahead and continue this. I'm going to go ahead and continue her buff stack. We're going to go ahead and let's see, did I do Snow Illusion last turn? I completely forgot what I did. So Strength and Magic are debuffed again. Another reason why it wouldn't be a really smart thing to increase that. Water attribute damage is up 100%. Strength is up 100%. So no, we do not have our debuff. Probably would have been better to do the debuff last turn, now that I know. But I'm going to go ahead and do it this turn. Physical and magic resistance are up. I call it debuff. It debuffs incoming damage. It's technically a buff. Okay, we're going to continue doing burn away. We're basically going to spam that. This does say status debuff plus 2 turns. So for all of Aiza's debuffs, those are going to continue to be replicated turn after turn, because you'll notice that Mikoto, well, she's not affected by that. So Aiza's going to have a ton of turns of debuffs by the end of this. All right. And Yosuga one more time. Let's go ahead and go. Now, once again, you don't have to replicate my team necessarily. What you want to do is you want to replicate the tactics that are going to take this on. Because I can promise you, if you do not play a defensive game here, you start taking insane damage that you are not going to appreciate. In fact, let me turn items off here. You notice that Ice has barely taken any damage. I like to have the icons on because then you can actually, if you're familiar with the icons and how they work, you can actually see what all I've done to these units. But strength and magic are still debuffed. That sucks. And she replenished the debuffs again that turn. Go figure. So, instead of Snow Illusion, we're going to do Dancing Snow. Now, everybody's got the Snow Illusion buff on themselves, so we are going to basically prevent ourselves from taking a huge amount of magic damage, because they do produce a ton of magic damage. We're going to decrease the amount of that incoming, and we're going to play now a little more of an offensive game, but we are still going to use Dancing Snow to remove the debuffs. And we're going to go ahead and do our big hit with Eyes. Riveria here. Names, words, hard things. Alright. So, we're going to do Yosuga, Burn Away, Dancing Snow, and Piercing Chill. Now, if you know anything about how Riv works, Riv gets her 1 extra attack every turn. So, we are going to have to buff that on this turn. You can already see the huge difference in damage that they're producing on this turn versus the previous turn. So, that kind of tells me that our debuff has been nullified. Yeah. So you notice that the magic debuff is no longer there. The magic debuff has been removed. So turn 5, you do want to replace that. I'm going to go ahead and do it on turn 6. Obvious reasons. We don't need our emergency heal yet, but if we don't get that debuff in place, we will. And I'm going to go ahead and rebuff Frozen Orb, because you'll see here, she's got 1 turn left on that. Remember, that action doesn't count for this turn. It counts for turn 7 and forward. So turn 7, 8, 9, we're going to have to rebuff it again. Makes sense? Makes sense. Let's go. All right, and Burn Away, we're really just going to keep spamming that to produce damage. Now, once again, like I said, a really good SA will wipe her out. So I think once we get the debuffs back in place, we are going to... You know what? She's debuffed 30%. Magic is down 65%. Let's see, for the sake of argument, rather than playing the crazy defensive game, let's see what happens if we do a double SA. Let me see. Does she have... Oh, but you know what? That would be stupid. That would be really stupid. Because she still is strength and magic down 25%. So we're going to go ahead and do the debuff game before we do that. Because with those debuffs in place, that's going to be really, really a dumb maneuver. Reason I said 25%, like if we hit for 1,000,000, that's 250,000 damage she's going to remove from that incoming hit. So while that Riv can hit really hard, that does mean that we are, like, literally a quarter of our damage is gone right away. And like I said, 1 really good hit could kill Eyes, 1 really debuffed hit could demoralize basically our team, for lack of a better way to put it. All right, I'm going to go back to doing Snow Silver. We're going to rebuff our MP. I'm going to go back and do Yosuga once again. Obvious reasons. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and do Sheikah, because I don't believe we have a penetration damage here. I know Line does counter, but I don't think she does penetration. Okay, penetration rate is 20%. Sheikah does 30%. Let's go ahead and buff that anyway. Let's go ahead and buff it anyway. All right, and that means that next turn, with all of our debuffs removed, hopefully, we can actually do a double SA, or a triple SA, in fact. So let's go ahead and see what happens here. All right. Oh, before I do that, we want to do that because, let's see. Yeah, additional Frozen Orb 3 turns. You got to pay attention to that. I'm so used to, like, with basically every range of the game since we got Haruhime for the last year going forward. Sometimes you just hit state where you start spamming attacks. You can't do that with this new meta. You got to pay close attention to your buff stack. So here we go. Burn Away, Piercing Chill, Snow Silver for the MP regen, and Sheikah to increase our penetration damage, because once again, we're not overly worried about that. Strength and magic are still debuffed. Let go. Alright. Now, thankfully, we're not taking insane damage yet. So hopefully that debuff stays in place. Perfect. And we could do a triple SA here. And I'd be willing to bet the triple SA might wipe her out. So let's go ahead and target her. Let's see. Magic debuff is still in play. That's perfect. We're going to go ahead and do this. Let's make sure no buffs are going to run out. Nope, everything is minimum 2 turns. Yep, minimum 2 turns. And... but you know what? Our debuff is still there. I don't think we're going to get away from that debuff, unfortunately. So, that's fine. That's fine. We're doing a triple SA. Hopefully this will wipe her out. Let's see how much health she has. She has just over 1 million. Perfect. We got this. We got this. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if Riv might wipe her out by herself. Don't know. I don't know if she's in it for a mill by herself. There's a possibility, though. There's a possibility. Now, the Water Riv, I don't think so, because Water Riv doesn't have any debuffs in play, and neither one of them have buffs enough to really produce the craziest damage. You know what I did? Let's try that again. Yosuga, SA, SA. That was a silly mistake to make. A very silly mistake. So learn from my mistakes. Unfortunately, I don't have any time to redo this run. Last run I had to close up. This run I don't have a chance to redo, so there we go. And unfortunately, like I said, we don't have any water debuffs out there. Even the damage that we did last turn wasn't really substantial. So if she hits for 500k, I'll be ecstatic. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, kind of expected that. Basically, if you know the way that these units work, when they have not only their buffs, but when they also have buffs applied with assists, they do insanely more damage. Unfortunately, she doesn't do that. We built far more of a defensive team. Now, that's another reason why I say, like, your Lenas and people like that would be way better units to throw on here. This was just an old team that I kind of slightly modified. It's by no means the optimal team. By no means whatsoever. We'll probably come back and revisit this, honestly. But for now, we're going to go ahead and do our main debuffs here. I'm going to have to rebuff Frozen Orb. Because remember, like I said, we have to rebuff it on turn 9. But an SA doesn't count as an action. So, since SAs don't count as an action, we're going to rebuff on turn 10. So we're going to do Frozen Orb. We're going to do the big fire debuff here. I'm going to go ahead and do Silver Snow one more time. Actually, let's see. I think Eyes was the one actually debuffing us, I believe. So Dancing Snow might actually get rid of it by the end of the turn. Let's see how that goes down. And, of course, Yosuga. So, yeah, let's go. Believe Eyes was the one doing the debuffs, if I recollect. Basically, the easiest way you can tell is you can actually go into these units in the album, and it will tell you what they're doing. Now, while she did heal, Eyes is the healer, so do bear that in mind. Eyes is definitely the healer. And she will know 1 physical damage. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. So that's another reason why using physical is really a bad idea. But her HP regen is gone because Eyes is gone. Her main buff, she'll buff her elemental damage, so she could hit hard, but so long as we're continue to do Dancing Snow, that's not going to be a big deal. Pretty straightforward stuff. Now, I could debuff her magic again, but since there's only 1 attacker, I'm not too concerned. Like, her damage now isn't in a scary situation. When there were 2 of them, that was a bit overwhelming. But now, well, now they're kind of sitting in the water going, she knows her time is limited. All right, so we've done our debuffs. We're going to go ahead and do this, and I'm going to build up another double SA. Once again, like I said, the SA from Riveria isn't going to be absolutely great, or from either Riveria, honestly. They could produce a lot more, because they both get buffs based on their elemental. I think actually it's per magic buff, isn't it? Yeah. So 50% per magic and fire attack damage buff skill. Since there isn't a fire attack damage buff on her assist side, she's going to produce a lot less damage. Now this one, 70% per water attack damage buff, and she doesn't have a water attack damage buff assist. So once again, both of these units could produce way more damage than they're producing, but we built a defensive team. So that is kind of the offset of that. Once again, though, if we had a light unit in here, well, we wouldn't be worried about that. Also, worth note, our debuffs are gone. So that's another reason I say Eyes does all your debuffing, Eyes does all your healing, Eyes does everything that is scary on this team. Once you get rid of her, Mikoto's pretty much going to fall. I think Mikoto does. I don't think Mikoto does the debuffing if recollection serves. I might eat my words on that here in a moment. But let's go ahead and soldier on. I think a double SA will take her down, though. So that is the thing. Notice she does do some decent damage, though. Her damage doesn't feel too terribly good because, once again, you will see she should have an elemental buff on here. Physical resistance is up. Magic resistance is up. That sucks. And her magic damage is up. I'm surprised her water element isn't up, but they might have switched her elemental damage for magic damage in this case. So do bear that in mind. I'm going to go ahead and just do a double SA because she's already pretty much dead. Even with her magic resistance up, it's not a concern. It's just not a concern. Like I said, once you get Eyes gone, Mikoto pretty much falls. So, will she survive 2 of these? Nope. We hit her for a mill. So, there you go. So, basically, just build your team accordingly. If I were to go back in there and say, build a light team, that'd be an easy S clear. But for now, that's just where we stand in this regard. So make sure that you are following that kind of defensive build, and you could easily beat EX. Now, if you want to know how to build an S team, we could definitely do that. I will do that later on, and we'll cover that probably in the next couple of days. But for now, that is basically how you do it. You need to play an early defensive game, and you need to be prepared to counteract all those debuffs and buffs that they're putting on themselves. So, pretty easy stuff. Now, if you want to know about these units, like we said earlier, this is the Ace banner. There is also the Joker banner. I don't recollect which one the Joker... Hold on, I can find out real quickly which one it had on there. But a lot of these units are fairly old. I mean, very old, in fact. So the Ace banner had Mikoto and Eyes on it, but also had Colonel Demeter. Now, if you want to know which unit is the best to get out of here, Demeter by a huge margin. Eyes and Mikoto both are going to be very limited in their usage going forward. Like, the new metas definitely have made both of them a little less relevant. So, more relevant in some ways, but less relevant in a lot of other ways. And I really feel like within 6 months, neither one of these units are going to be used very much at all. Once again, we're talking about the power creep in the game, but that's the way it works. So Demeter definitely is the best one here. She's going to be very relevant for a very, very, very long time. The other banner that we got was the Joker banner, and that included the was it the Riveria? It was the Casino Riv, who I don't think we've used in a long time. The oh man, I forgot about the Chloe. It actually includes the Casino. Casino Chloe is still a really good unit because when she's maximum broken, she can nullify 2 physical attacks, and that could be very, very, very killer, although the new meta is taking that away a little bit. And the Naza assist, which is also very good. So if you really want to know, the Colonel Demeter and the Naza assist in the other heroic trial that we should be getting next week hasn't been announced, but I think it's pretty obvious to say that those are happening next week. Both of those are going to be your best options. And I'm not just saying that because they're assists. I'm saying that because being these units are, over a year old now. I believe, in fact, both these banners, I believe, dropped before Haruhime last year. So you're talking about units that are extremely old, extremely dated. I really feel like the assists on both of these teams are very, very, very good. So that's my recommendation. But for now, that's going to be the video. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments section. Like I said, build a defensive team debuff their outgoing damage as much as humanly possible, and buff up your defenses as much as humanly possible, and you should be good. And once then Eyes is gone, you can just wipe out. I mean, just wreck. I even forgot who was there, and I'm looking directly at her. You can absolutely wreck Mikoto very quickly like that. So go take advantage of that. Do build single target teams. I think AoE is a misstep in that one. You do want to do single target. One good single target wipes him out very quickly. So that's going to be the video. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments section down below. Like, comment, and share, and I will catch you all on the next one.